Hey guys, welcome back to Fishing It Up. Today I want to discuss the equipment I'm using, why I'm using my forward-facing sonar, what rod, reel, what some of my favorite lures are, terminal tackle, things like that. I want to get into that. You're starting to hear a lot about lures that are specifically designed for forward-facing sonar, but one of my favorites is the Sonar Minnow. It's been out a while. It's one of the first ones that were developed just for forward-facing sonar, and I catch a lot of fish on it. I like it. So let's get into my equipment, how I use it, and why. This is the second Phoenix brand rod that I have. I actually got this reel. It's an Abu Garcia Revo X spinning reel. I got that for Christmas as a gift, and I'm not really an Abu guy, but after using this, I like it. I can't complain at all. It's a great reel. It's very lightweight, especially when paired with this Phoenix feather light. It's a great combo. Seriously. And that is paired with 10-pound braid, and I run an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader on there. So let me show you both of those. The Cigar 10-pound in flash green, so it shows up. And then I use the Yozuri Premium 8-pound fluorocarbon. Now, I've been running this, and I run this. I have 4 spinning reel setups. They're for different things. Ned rig, drop shot, and I have another one that I alternate between stuff for forward-facing sonar and a shaky head or something like that. But they're all 10-pound braid to 8-pound fluorocarbon leaders. Now, the only time that will be an issue, or that I've seen that is an issue, is when it's really windy out. Now, if you fished with braid, especially lightweight braid like this, and you cast it, the wind catches it, and it blows giant loops in it. It's just everywhere. And especially if you're fishing 2 up on the front of the boat, and you guys are going to be tangled up. It's just not something you want to do. So what I'm going to move to is the rod I've been using that's alternating. I'm going to set it up as fluorocarbon all the way. No braid on it at all. I don't like to do that because of line twist and stuff, but as much as I'm going to use it, when it's just windy and so on, I'm going to set it up fluorocarbon. That should take up a lot of the issue I'm having and get that lure to sink just as fast as it normally would. Because with it being really windy, even when you increase the weight, the wind will pick that up, and it'll keep pulling, blowing on that line until it's holding back on it, and it doesn't sink near as fast as what it should. So just keep that in mind when you're picking out your setups and what you're going to run. Just remember there is pitfalls to everything. Nothing's perfect all the time, but this is pretty close to it. It's just when it gets windy, it is not as good as what it is when it's not. Now, to get right down to the lure, this is your Sonar Minnow here. I'm using a 3-inch most of the time, and typically 3/16 or 1/4 ounce head. It comes in 1/8, 3/16 and 1/4 in raw, white, or smoke color, I think is the last one. And I'm typically just using the raw or the white. White's usually my favorite, but in the 3-inch. It has a sickle hook, so you get pretty good hookup rates. You typically don't lose any fish. Now, there is other heads that you can use. I just use the Yum branded ones because they were designed along with the lure itself, and I've used them for a while, and like I said, they have really good hookup ratios, and I don't lose too many fish. They penetrate the hard part of their lip pretty good, because that's usually where you're hooking the fish, is up in the top lip, right through the hard spot. Unless they're really munching on this thing, that's typically where it is in the hard spot of the lip there. But there is other heads that you can use. When I first started, here's these a couple different ones. VMC, the Moon Eyes. I have some dirty jigs. heads here. These are a little bit heavier. These are 3/8. There is not a 3/8 in the Sonar Minnow, the Yum branded ones. And then here's 1/4 ounce and the Jinko fishing head. Now, if you're looking for something a little bit bigger, a little bit different, Rapala has the new Crush City freeloader, and I have the 4 1/4 inch here. It's a little bit bigger bait. It has pintail on it. It does have a lot of action. You can see how much it moves around. So if you want to go something larger, you may want to try that. It has the basically the same or a similar body shape as the Sonar Minnow. They're all similar. You could use a smaller fluke if need be on a Demiki head or whatever you have available, whatever you may already have. That way you're not out spending money to get into this. So yeah, I have the Core Tackle hover rig here, and on it is the Hog Farmer Spark Shad. This is another good one. It has the pintail. It's a 3.5 inch. This is the electric shad color. It's one of my favorites. Anything electric shad I gravitate towards. I just love natural looking colors like this. And it's pretty good. It's slow sinking. The big thing with this is making sure you get it centered up. Now, if you're fishing the Easy Shiner from Kitech, just overlook the top spin here, and they've been damaged, or you've had the paddle tail bitten off, so you have a bunch of these just straight baits left, take you a pair of scissors and just go ahead and cut this tail up at an angle, and that way you'll end up with just pretty much a little straight-tailed bait. They work great. Just put those on one of the heads, either a Yum one or any kind of ball head jig that you may have, or you could even put that on a hover rig. It works really well. It helps you get some more use out of some of your worn baits. I'm going to go over one technique that I use to actually locate fish, and that is, you've probably seen it in some of my previous videos if you've watched any of them. I like to use my side imaging. Side imaging is a huge benefit when you can scan 300 feet wide and at 6 miles an hour. That's way faster than what you can do with the trolling motor. And you can just pull into a spot, scan it with side imaging, and if there is shad there or whatever the forage is on your lake, if you can see it, I'm looking for schools of shad. I'm going to call them balls of shad. I have one co-angler that calls them puddles. So, and then here recently, we've been calling them Chad. So, we pull up to a spot and we start looking for the Chads. And when we find the Chads, then we actually get up on the trolling motor and try to pick them apart. We try to determine if there is actual fish feeding in the Chads. And if there is fish feeding in the Chads, then I'll go ahead and get everything set up so we can fish them. Now, if there's not any fish there, there's a possibility that there could be fish coming in to feed on those Chads. But it just depends. It's all about timing a lot of the time when I'm doing this. So, but what we'll do is once we get up there and we're picking this apart, even if I don't see any fish that are actively feeding, I will cast a couple times into the school of shad and reel it through there, whether it be through the top, through the bottom, through the middle. Just cast it through there and reel it through a few times to see if any fish, because sometimes those fish, if they're not feeding, they will sit inside the shad. You can't see them with your forward-facing sonar, but they don't magically appear out of nowhere, so that's where they're at. That's where I've caught them. They've actually been sitting inside of the shad, and I guess when they get hungry, they just turn around, eat some fish, and then hang back out there and just kind of follow them around like that. So if you get lucky enough, one will be sitting in there and you'll reel through and catch them. Now, the easiest way to catch them now in this scenario is if you actually watch them, and if you've seen them before, they will actually, you'll see the school of shad on your sonar on the live scope, and then they will blow a circle, a hole right in the middle. They'll fan out, and you will see this larger dot, larger fish, whatever you want to call it, somewhere inside that circle it just opened up. Now, if you've timed this closely, because he's been feeding in and out of it, and you reeled your Sonar Minnow or whatever lure you're fishing with through there, and you're working it how you're going to work it, whether you're twitching it or you're just straight retrieving it back to the boat. Hopefully, if it's your day, he's going to run that down and smash that lure. And a lot of times, if you can come out of the shad just as he's running, he will eat it because it's in front of his face. So I can see why people say that using live scope makes it too easy. Because when this happens, I reeled it through there, but it's timing. And it may take you hours to get that timing right and actually make this scenario play out if that's what you're shooting for. It's not going to always happen just right off the rip, because I've spent entire tournaments when we couldn't locate fish on the bank or we couldn't get fish to bite in any other scenario, and that's pretty much what we said, hey, this is what we're going to put our time into. We spent an entire tournament fishing these schools of shad trying to get that perfect scenario or near perfect scenario of when the fish is feeding, and we reel our lure through there and so that they will eat it. Because when they're outside the school of shad, sometimes if they haven't fed, they will go ahead and run the lure down and eat it. Sometimes they could care less. It's just like anything else. Whether you're using the forward-facing sonar or not, you're still at the mercy of the fish. So if they're in that kind of mood, they're going to eat that lure no matter what it is and how far off it is from them. But if they got to have it right on the tip of their nose and you got to hit that perfect scenario, then it's going to take you a while to get that. Especially when you have wind, rain, and all these other factors. Your boat's constantly moving and you're trying to cast and you can only cast so accurately, and all these variables add up. It doesn't really get that easy. Now, I'm sure for some of you younger guys, it is pretty easy. You can handle it physically. Me, myself, once you get up in your 40s, I sit at a desk a lot, so standing was rough at first, but after I've been doing this for a few years, it's not as bad. A lot of people will sit when it's really windy, but I just go ahead and start standing and just deal with it. So I must say to a lot of you, if you do have problems with cramping or your back hurts or whatever, just try to drink a lot of water. Try to stretch before you get out there. I'll actually do it on the front of the boat while I'm waiting for the tournament to blast off. So you got a lot of options, but you know, you'll spend all day trying to get these perfect scenarios if that's the way you intend to fish. But sometimes the fish are feeding so perfectly, so heavily, that you can just get it roughly close and it will seal the deal. But those days are usually few and far between because as we all know, fishing is fishing and is not catching. Alright guys, hopefully you've enjoyed today's video and you found it helpful in some way, especially if you're wanting to get into using some kind of hover technique or just fishing some kind of minnow style bait on forward-facing sonar. Now, a lot of you may still need lots of experience using your forward-facing sonar, and I have a couple videos on settings and what not to do, so take a look at some of those. But as always, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time on Fishing It Up.